In the small, forgotten town of Elmswood, nestled between dense woods and rolling hills, stood the old Greystone House. Its gray stone facade was draped in ivy, and its windows, clouded with grime, seemed to gaze out like watchful eyes. The townsfolk whispered about the house, warning children not to play near it. They spoke of spirits trapped within its walls, echoes of a tragic past. But for Jake Thompson, a curious and restless 25-year-old, the stories were irresistible. Jake had recently inherited the house from a distant relative he'd never met. Eager to leave his mundane life behind, he packed his things and drove the winding roads to Elmswood, excitement bubbling beneath his apprehension. Upon arrival, a chill ran down his spine. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of damp wood and mold. As he stepped inside, the creaking of the old floorboards echoed like distant laughter, unsettling yet intriguing. The house was a labyrinth of shadowy corners and sun-drenched rooms. Dust motes danced in the beams of light filtering through cracked windows. Jake moved through the parlor, where faded photographs hung crookedly on the walls, depicting stern-faced ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow him. He felt an inexplicable weight in the air, a tangible sense of presence. Goosebumps prickled his skin, and he shook his head, dismissing the feeling as mere nerves. That night, the wind howled outside, and the temperature dropped sharply. Jake settled into his makeshift bedroom, an old room with peeling wallpaper that whispered tales of yesteryear. As he lay in bed, the silence was punctuated by faint sounds: the rustle of fabric, a soft sigh, and the low creak of the house settling. Sleep eluded him, and soon, he found himself listening intently. Then, it came. A soft, melodic whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Help me," the voice sent shivers coursing through his body. Jake's heart raced. He sat up, his breaths quickening, the darkness closing in around him like a living thing. He glanced at the door, half expecting it to burst open, revealing some specter. But all remained still. Compelled by a mixture of fear and curiosity, Jake swung his legs over the side of the bed and stepped onto the cold floor. He felt the chill seep through his thin socks as he crept toward the source of the whisper. Each step felt like a leap into an abyss, uncertainty gnawing at him. He reached the hallway, where moonlight slashed through the window, illuminating the dust-laden air. Suddenly, the whispers grew clearer, wrapping around him like a shroud. "Help me. Find it," the voice echoed, weaving through the air. Jake's pulse pounded in his ears as he moved toward the living room, where shadows twisted into grotesque shapes. The flickering light from the fireplace cast eerie silhouettes on the walls, and he felt an overwhelming urge to flee. But a strange determination pulled him forward. "Who's there?" he called, his voice quaking. The air thickened, and the temperature dropped even further. In the dim light, he saw a figure, a woman dressed in a flowing, tattered gown. Her hair hung like curtains around her pale face, and her eyes, empty yet pleading, met his. Fear surged within him, threatening to drown him in its depths. "Help me," she whispered again, reaching out as if to grasp something beyond his reach. Jake felt his breath hitch, and a torrent of emotions flooded over him. Fear, confusion, and an odd sympathy for the lost spirit before him. "What do you need?" he managed to stammer, his voice barely above a whisper. The ghost's expression shifted, revealing a flicker of hope. "The locket. Find the locket." With that, she faded into the shadows, leaving behind an oppressive silence that felt heavy as a shroud. Jake stumbled back, his heart racing wildly. The words echoed in his mind, stirring a blend of dread and determination. He knew he had to uncover the truth, to help the spirit find peace. The whispers returned, swirling around him like a tempest, and he felt compelled to investigate. In the days that followed, Jake searched every corner of the house. He sifted through dusty boxes and musty books, piecing together fragments of the woman's life. Her name was Eliza, a young woman who had vanished decades ago, leaving the townsfolk haunted by her absence. As he uncovered stories and snippets of letters, Jake felt a connection to her, a shared sense of longing and loss. One stormy night, While rifling through an old trunk in the attic, he discovered a small, ornate locket. It was tarnished and cold, but as he opened it, a rush of warmth enveloped him. Inside was a picture of Eliza and a man with kind eyes. He realized the locket was not just a keepsake. It was a symbol of love, lost but not forgotten. With newfound purpose, Jake returned to the living room, heart racing with anticipation. He held the locket before him, whispering, "I found it, Eliza." The air crackled, and for a moment, the room felt alive with energy. The ghost reappeared, a serene smile gracing her lips. "Thank you," she breathed, and as she reached for the locket, a bright light filled the room, illuminating every shadow. Jake felt a warmth envelop him, a sense of peace that washed away the fear. In an instant, the light faded, leaving behind only silence. The house felt different now. The oppressive weight had lifted, replaced by a comforting stillness. As Jake looked around, he realized the whispers had ceased, leaving behind an echo of gratitude. He had not just faced his fears. He had connected with a spirit longing for closure. Jake left Greystone House changed. The stories of the past were no longer whispers in the walls. They were part of him now. He drove back to his life, a sense of calm in his heart, knowing that sometimes, the fears we face can lead us to profound connections both in life and beyond. As Jake drove away from Greystone House, the crisp autumn air filled his lungs. But he couldn't shake the lingering sensation that something had shifted within him. The weight of Eliza's presence had left a mark, igniting a curiosity that went beyond the supernatural. What else had the house seen? What other stories lay hidden within its walls? Back in the small town of Elmswood, the streets felt eerily familiar yet foreign. Jake parked his car in front of the local diner, a cozy place with neon lights flickering like stars in the gathering dusk. He stepped inside, the warmth wrapping around him like a welcoming embrace. The smell of fresh coffee and pancakes filled the air, but he hardly noticed. His mind was still wrapped around Eliza and the locket. As he settled into a booth, he overheard a couple of elderly patrons talking in hushed tones. "They say Greystone House is finally quiet," one remarked. "That girl's spirit must have found peace." The other nodded, eyes wide with disbelief. "And what about the man? He's a brave one, that Jake." Intrigued, Jake leaned closer, pretending to read the menu. He caught snippets of the town's history, tales of Eliza's disappearance, the heartbreak that gripped the town, and whispers of other restless spirits. The more he heard, the more he felt the pull of the house. What if there were more secrets buried in the walls, waiting to be uncovered? After finishing his meal, Jake paid the bill and ventured out, determined to learn more. He wandered to the small town library, a quaint building with ivy creeping up its stone exterior. Inside, he was greeted by the musty smell of old books and the quiet rustle of pages turning. The librarian, a woman in her 60s with a warm smile, noticed his curiosity. "Looking for something specific?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "I just inherited Greystone House," Jake replied, trying to sound casual. "I'd love to know more about its history." The librarian's eyes sparkled with interest. "Ah, Greystone, a place full of stories. You're not the first to ask. It's said to have a spirit or two lingering about." She motioned for him to follow her to a back room lined with shelves of local history. As they browsed through dusty archives, she recounted tales of Eliza, her beauty, her kindness, and the tragedy of her disappearance. She was to be married, the librarian said, her voice thick with emotion. But on the eve of her wedding, she vanished without a trace. People thought she had run away, but I believe she was taken by the house itself, caught in its web of sorrow. Jake felt a chill as he flipped through faded newspaper clippings, one headline screaming, "Mysterious Disappearance. Eliza Harrington vanishes." The accompanying photo captured her bright smile, a stark contrast to the haunting words beneath. "Do you have any idea what happened to her?" Jake asked, his voice low. The librarian shook her head. "No one knows for sure, but people have reported seeing her wandering the woods at night, searching for something or someone." Her gaze turned serious. You be careful in that house, dear. It's not just a building. It holds memories, and sometimes those memories can be restless. Feeling the weight of her words, Jake left the library with a mix of exhilaration and dread. He had touched upon something far deeper than he had expected. Eliza was not just a ghost. She was a piece of the town's history, a reflection of its pain and loss. He felt compelled to help her find closure, not only for her sake but for the town that mourned her. That night, he returned to Greystone House, determined to uncover more. The air was thick with anticipation, and the house creaked in response to his presence. Armed with a flashlight, he revisited the living room, where he had last seen Eliza. The atmosphere felt charged, like the moments before a storm. "Okay, Eliza," he whispered into the stillness. "I'm here. Let's find out what you need." As he combed through the room again, he noticed a loose floorboard near the fireplace. Kneeling down, he pried it open, revealing a small, dark space beneath. Inside, he discovered a small, leather-bound journal, its edges frayed with age. Heart pounding, he pulled it out, dusting it off as he opened it carefully. The pages were filled with Eliza's elegant handwriting, detailing her hopes, dreams, and fears. She wrote of her impending marriage, her love for a man named Thomas, and her growing anxiety about the wedding. But the last few entries turned darker fragments of fear, feelings of being watched, and a sense of foreboding that enveloped her. One line caught Jake's eye. "I fear I am being drawn into the shadows. I must find a way to escape." As he read, a chill crept up his spine, and the air around him thickened with tension. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Suddenly, a gust of wind rattled the windows, and Jake's flashlight flickered, plunging him into darkness. Panic surged through him, but he steadied himself, clutching the journal tightly. "Eliza, what happened to you?" He called out into the void, his voice echoing back eerily. Just then, a whisper floated through the room, soft yet urgent. "Find him." The words sent a jolt of realization through Jake. Thomas. She was searching for Thomas. But who was he? What had happened to him? With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake realized he had to delve deeper into Eliza's past. He had to find Thomas, not only to bring closure to Eliza's spirit, but to unveil the truth behind her tragic fate. He spent the following days in the town, piecing together the fragments of Eliza's story. He scoured old records, visited the local cemetery where she was buried, and spoke to townsfolk who remembered the couple. Every clue brought him closer to the truth, but also deeper into a web of secrets that the town had long tried to forget. Then, one evening, while poring over records at the library, Jake stumbled upon a mention of a tragic accident, a carriage crash that had claimed the lives of several townspeople, including a man named Thomas Harrington. The date was eerily close to the day of Eliza's disappearance. Heart racing, Jake followed the leads, uncovering tales of loss that rippled through Elmswood. He learned that Thomas and Eliza had been deeply in love, their wedding day looming as the promise of a life together. But the accident had shattered that dream, leaving Eliza adrift in sorrow. Returning to Greystone House, the atmosphere felt heavy with grief. The whispers had returned, a mournful chorus echoing through the halls. As he sat in the parlor, clutching the journal, he sensed Eliza's presence enveloping him once more. "I know what happened," he murmured, feeling the tears prick at his eyes. "I know about Thomas. I'll help you find him, Eliza." As he spoke, the air shimmered, and a soft light began to glow in the corner of the room. A spectral image of Eliza appeared, her face a mixture of hope and sorrow. The house felt alive, the very walls pulsing with her longing. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze. "He is near, but the shadows hold him tight. We must break the bond." Jake's heart raced at her words. Shadows? What did she mean? He felt an urgency, as if time was slipping away. The mystery was deepening, and he was now entwined in a haunting tale that stretched far beyond what he had ever imagined. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. Determined to uncover the truth, Jake embarked on a new journey, a search not just for the lost love of Eliza Harrington, but for the very essence of what it meant to love and to lose. With each piece of the puzzle he uncovered, he felt the weight of the house lift ever so slightly, as if Eliza's spirit was guiding him forward, urging him to break the chains that bound her to the past. What awaited him was still unknown, but he knew he had to follow the whispers, wherever they might lead. Jake felt the air around him shimmer with energy as Eliza's ghost flickered like a candle in the wind. "We must break the bond," she urged, her voice imbued with urgency. He grasped the journal tightly, the weight of its pages a reminder of the love and loss contained within. "What do I need to do?" he asked, determination igniting in his chest. Eliza's eyes shimmered with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "Find the place where it happened, where the shadows hold him tight," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper, but Jake understood. The carriage accident, there must be a specific location tied to that tragedy, a place where both their souls were anchored to the past. Jake's mind raced as he recalled the stories he had heard. The townsfolk had often mentioned an old, twisted oak tree that stood at the edge of the woods, the site of the accident. It was said to be a place where whispers of the past lingered, where those who had perished still roamed. He knew what he had to do. That night, as the moon hung low in the sky, casting silver beams across the ground, Jake set out toward the woods. The path was overgrown, brambles snatching at his clothes like fingers reaching for him. As he neared the tree, a sense of foreboding washed over him. The air felt charged, electric, as if the very fabric of reality was bending around him. The old oak loomed ahead, gnarled and twisted, its branches reaching like skeletal arms against the starry sky. Jake approached cautiously, the whispering wind sending shivers down his spine. He placed a hand against the rough bark, feeling its ancient energy pulsate beneath his fingers. "Thomas," he called out, his voice ringing through the stillness. "I'm here to help you find peace." For a moment, silence enveloped him. Then, a soft, low sound echoed through the night, an anguished cry that seemed to rise from the very earth. Jake's heart raced as the air thickened, shadows swirling around him. Suddenly, he felt a rush of cold air, and from the depths of the darkness, a figure emerged. Thomas Harrington. The man was ethereal, his form wavering like smoke, but Jake could see the pain etched on his face. "Eliza," he murmured, his voice filled with longing. "I cannot leave her." Jake's heart ached at the sight. "You have to let go. She's been searching for you," he urged, feeling the connection between them strengthen. "She's here with me. You need to find peace." Thomas's gaze flickered between Jake and the tree, and the shadows around him seemed to writhe with unrest. "I'm bound by the pain of that day, by the shadows of my regrets." In that moment, Jake understood. The shadows weren't just memories. They were the grief and sorrow that had tied Thomas to this world. "You need to forgive yourself," Jake said, his voice steady. "It wasn't your fault. You both were meant to be together." As the words left his mouth, the wind began to howl, and the shadows writhed more intensely. Eliza's spirit appeared beside Jake, her face illuminated by the moonlight. "Thomas," she whispered, her voice soft yet powerful. "I've missed you, but I want you to be free. We can't be together if you're trapped in sorrow." A wave of emotion surged through Thomas, and Jake could feel the energy shift. The shadows darkened and twisted, but a glimmer of light broke through, piercing the gloom. "I'm so sorry, Eliza," he whispered, tears glistening in his spectral eyes. "I should have protected you." "You loved me," Eliza replied, stepping closer. "That love transcends this pain. You must let go so we can find each other again, beyond this world." In that moment, the wind howled even louder, and Jake felt a force pulling at him, as if the very ground beneath him was shifting. The shadows began to retreat, the air brightening as Thomas reached for Eliza's hand. "Together," he said, his voice filled with newfound strength. The shadows shrieked, swirling around them, but as they clasped hands, the darkness began to dissolve, light radiating from their joined figures. Jake watched in awe as the energy surged, wrapping around Thomas and Eliza, lifting them beyond the confines of the earthly realm. "Thank you," Thomas's voice echoed in the air, filled with gratitude. "You've set us free." With a final flash of brilliance, they vanished into the night, leaving behind only a lingering warmth and a sense of peace that filled the woods. The twisted oak seemed to sigh with relief, the shadows retreating into the depths of the earth. Jake stood there, breathless and awash in a profound sense of accomplishment. He had bridged the gap between the past and the present, helping lost souls find their way home. As the moon illuminated the path before him, he felt lighter, the burden of the house's sorrow lifted. Returning to Greystone House, he felt a profound change in the atmosphere. The oppressive weight that had once settled over the rooms was gone, replaced by a sense of calm. The whispers that had haunted the halls were now echoes of gratitude, celebrating the love that had finally found its way to peace. In the weeks that followed, Jake immersed himself in the history of Elmswood, sharing the stories of Eliza and Thomas with the townsfolk. He turned the house into a place of remembrance, honoring the lives lost and the love that endured. The once dreaded Greystone became a sanctuary, a beacon of hope for those who had suffered. As Jake settled into his new life, he often felt Eliza and Thomas's presence around him, an occasional whisper in the wind, a flicker of light in the corner of his eye. He knew they were free, their love transcending the boundaries of life and death. Greystone House stood as a testament to the power of love, a place where whispers turned into stories, and stories became a legacy that would continue to echo through the ages, reminding all who entered of the enduring bonds that tie us together, even in the face of darkness. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.